Hello and welcome in this new podcast where we talk with all sorts of people who work on peace in many different ways. And today we are talking to Mark Akkerman, who is a researcher at the organization called Stop Wapenhandel, which means Stop the Weapons Trade. And he is an expert on weapons trade and on the current trend of militarization in Europe and the entire West. So welcome, Mark.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You're a prolific writer. You have been present in many news media and warning a lot the last period. So warning about what is currently happening in the Netherlands and many other Western countries, which you call militarization. Just to be sure, how would you describe this militarization? What is actually going on?
Okay, well, yeah, I think it's hard to give a complete definition, but it's the idea that there is there's much more reliance on military power, building up military power, but not only that, doing that, broader. Like the whole society has to be taken on a path towards war preparation, and I think that's really what you see happening in the Netherlands.
And can you refer to some events where you can really see that this militarization is happening?
I think you see it happening in the enormous increase in military expenditure in the Netherlands, many other countries. But you also see it in what's happening now, that the military wants to have a lot more space in the Netherlands, a lot of places where they want to have new locations. But you can also see it in recent advice to universities to do more military research. It's
And can you give us some numbers? Like if we talk about the Netherlands specifically, we have since a couple of months a new government, and there was a huge increase in this military budget that they propose. Can you say a little bit about it? Can you name some numbers and how, so people can imagine what's actually going on?
All in all, the government wants to spend about 37 billion more on military spending in the next 4 years. And there's already been a lot of increase. Like the military budget for this year is 40% higher than that of last year. I think the budget has almost tripled in the last decade, so it's an enormous increase. It's quite cynical because you see a lot of austerity measures on other issues like education, healthcare, international cooperation. And I think you then go on a completely irresponsible and completely wrong course.
Why is it wrong? Because many people will say, look at Ukraine. We are fighting, we're putting all our equipment already there, and the Ukrainians are fighting against this big military might in the east. So what I hear many people say, also military commentators, they say we should really prepare for this conflict can expand and we can be directly involved. So we should prepare as a society. We cannot be naive and just think that it will pass by our country. How would you react to that?
I think it's not based on facts, really. NATO, the military alliance which the Netherlands is part of and relies on a lot, is responsible for over half of military spending in the world. It's about 13 times as high as the Russian military spending, which of course has gone up enormously over the last few years. if you look at EU spending alone, it's over 3 times as high as the Russian military spending, and the Russian military apparatus is completely stretched with what it's doing in Ukraine. I think you really don't have your facts right if you think that Russia is a threat to the EU or to other European countries. I mean, what Russia is doing in Ukraine is horrible. Russia is doing to some of other neighbors is horrible, but the idea that is ready for a complete attack on the EU or NATO country isn't based in facts. That's one side of the story. And the other side of the story is that just by going in this tunnel of war preparation, you don't even think of other possibilities anymore, and it would be. I think it would be so much better if there was also a path for dialogue and diplomacy and trying to prevent war, thinking that it's inevitable and we're going that way.
Yeah. So, but if you say, it's not based in facts, it's not sort of, the analysis doesn't really show Russia intent on attacking NATO. Mm-hmm. So, why then do you think is this increasing call for militarization and the active budgets going up? What's the main driver behind it then, if it's not Russia?
I'm not sure if there is one main driver. In the end, it's all about a power struggle. I think a geopolitical power struggle in the international theater. It's about things like access to resources, who has the influence, if you look at also at military strategies in the West, you see that Russia is not the main concern. The main concern is the role of China. Which I think military also isn't a threat to the West, but in terms of geopolitical competition and competition over resources, it's the main competitor for the US and for the EU.
So you say the main driver are geopolitical tensions, let's say, or geopolitical rivalry. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean. These weapons are real. The increase in military budgets is going to be spent on enlarging armies, etc. So do you expect it is going to be used in some way? No, is it going to be used, or do you think it's just a way of sort of posturing, or how do you see it? Are we really preparing for a conflict, or how do you see it?
I think it's both. It's posturing, but it's also, I mean, the more arms are available and the more the mindset is going to war preparation, it's easier just, take step after step towards conflict.
Yeah, because these generals that are on the news, they're warning for Russia, etc. They seem to be, they're very outspoken, and they really sort of are trying to reach to the Dutch people as an audience. You need to support the army, basically. That means that they see themselves already in some sort of conflict or war. So I wonder really, and of course you cannot look in the minds of these people, but how realistic do they see a scenario of war?
Yeah, I can't answer that because, like you said, I can watch in their head, but it's something that they're really on a path to. If you look, at the commander of the Dutch armed forces, if you look at Bauer, who's the highest military commander within NATO, you see that they're not only talking about more military spending and things like that, so what directly concerns them, but indeed they're trying to reach the whole society, and everybody should prepare for war. I can look in their heads and see if they really expect that, or it's just to strengthen their own position and to strengthen the position of the armed forces. I don't know.
Now you've already mentioned that this comes at the cost of other social the money has to come from something. So we already see that it's coming from different parts of the budget, like education and healthcare. What do you foresee as a future if this goes ahead and we proceed on this path of militarization, basically in the Netherlands? What will happen to society?
Society will become more and more militarized. While those cuts on other issues, I think if you want a society where people feel secure, where there's human security for everyone, then it's then you should invest in things like healthcare and education and international cooperation and support for people, and not in preparing for war and raising tensions. I'm not very optimistic about the future at the moment. With the Netherlands and all these countries preparing for war and a lot of militarization going on.
It comes at the same moment that we see right-wing extremism being popularized and even taking part in governments. Should that raise, is it cause for extra concern, do you think, at this time of militarization?
I absolutely think, because it also targets vulnerable people. There's also a lot of militarization of borders, so violence against people on the move. And I think one of the main concerns also, and that's where really the far right and militarization almost come together, is a hint of more authoritarian government. You see that in the Netherlands in small things, like the military saying, we don't care about all the objections people and municipalities and environmental organizations have against us taking up a lot more locations in the Netherlands. We just shove them all aside, and we got to push this through.
So basically, how does that work? Because in the narrative, we are supposed to stand up against authoritarianism. No, we are the democrat states.
Yeah.
So but it seems like these are authoritarian measures by themselves, don't you think?
I think it's not uncommon in history that people have this idea that you need to become more undemocratic to protect democracy.
So militarization goes a bit hand in hand with more authoritarianism, you say?
Yeah.
Now, looking at the actual spending, a lot is going to weapons. Logically, you already mentioned some other things like having more space for the army to practice and all those kind of things. But in practice, it goes a lot to new weapons. I heard, I think, not so long ago, that we are about to order 50 new tanks or something. I don't know the exact amount, exact number, but so some people will be quite happy with it, I presume, because they will make big sales. So, you are an expert on this weapons trade. How does it actually work? I mean, how these decisions being made? How is the military industry somehow involved in this kind of developments that we have seen over the past years?
Getting more and more involved, really. You're right. If you look at the plans of the current government, there's a long shopping list for new weapons. That's all part of this ongoing process of more military spending, militarization, and the military industry, the arms industry, is becoming more and more involved in it. Of course, it's always tried to lobby the government for its own interests. But what we see now is that the government really embraces the industry and say, hey, these are the experts and they need to be involved in co-shaping policy. For example, there are several things like the overall policy document a couple of years ago, Defensievisie 2035, for example, was the first time that we read that 50 military companies were invited to give input in the talks beforehand. And that's something that you now almost commonly see in if there are new measures, new policy documents that somehow connect to the arms industry, they're always invited beforehand to talk. I've seen documents where the government proudly says, oh, the industry is happy with this, they are satisfied with what we do. So it's a really unhealthy relationship, and I don't think you see that in any other branches where the industry itself is so involved in.
And it seems kind of strange to me because the army is supposed to, bring security. Mm-hmm. So you would think that's the first priority. If you look to the country, you see what are security threats, and then you're gonna strategize, and later you'll see what kind of weapons, for instance, is involved. Isn't it kind of obvious to me? It would seem obvious that, if you involve the industry that makes a profit, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you're more secure. It does mean that you're going to spend more. Yeah.
Exactly.
So well, isn't that some sort of caution against that?
That should be, but I think the idea that you should discuss what's the best way forward in international politics. International relation, for example, all seem to be basically thrown aside. The presumption is that we need to prepare for war. That war is almost inevitable, and if you start from that, you're only looking at militarized solutions for things. And then you say, hey, but who are the experts on military solutions, on arms? Hey, let's involve that industry.
So this is all result of having taken certain decision already that cannot be questioned anymore. Let's say. What needs to happen is what at least needs to happen is taking a step back and think about this overall. And do you have the idea that discussion is taking place somewhere, like the more strategic discussion and the question, hey, is it actually a good idea that we are moving in this direction?
No, I think everybody who questions that is immediately pointed at and saying, hey, you don't care about our security, or you're pro-Putin or whatever.
That's pretty sad and also dangerous, I would say. I was wondering if you ask the weapons industry, obviously they kind of say you need more weapons, but how can you say what is the relationship actually between? In principle, you would say like any commercial business tries to to exaggerate the problem that it's going to solve, you know. So. You see these advertisements, stomach pain, oh, it's so suffering, so you need this pill. I'm offering the solution to your problem. So they have an interest in sort of showing the problem as bigger than it is. So, but how do you see you could say then, you could think the military industry would like war because that means that they can make more profits. Is it so as straightforward as that? Or how is the relation exactly between the military-industrial complex and there being wars in general? Do you see any evidence that military industry is really sort of promoting certain military solutions, or how would you see that?
Of course, the military industry is promoting military solutions. So they do that for geopolitical tensions, but they do that for everything. For migration, if there's a pandemic, climate change, they always have the solution. It's always the militarized solution.
But can you really say that they're also a cause of war? That's what I'm trying to find. Are they a trigger for war? Are they a reason to fight a war? Are they really behind the scenes saying you need to fight this war?
No, I don't think it's that straightforward.
No.
They are fostering a mindset that goes to war. Governments are really embracing that, taking that over. And then once there is a conflict, which of course it's easier to fight conflicts if you have all those arms. It's easier to take the step to war if you have arms and to avoid other solutions like diplomacy and dialogue. So that's the point. And once there is war, of course, they profit. You see every time you see the share prices and the number of orders really increase enormously after the start of the Ukraine war, after the start of the war in Gaza. So yeah, of course they profit from it. It's also, if you look at your annual reports, they're always happy with increasing tensions in regions in the world because it means more profit opportunities for them. And they use wars. I mean, Ukraine government is also promoting Ukraine as a testing lab for arms. And it's, yeah, of course, it's well known that Israel is using Palestinian territories as a testing ground for new weapons, or the Israeli arms industry is doing that in connection with the Israeli army. So yeah, there are many ways they profit from war, and it's useful for them, from war or even from increasing tensions already. I don't think that there's a big conspiracy of arms traders behind the scenes. It's that's
maybe
pushing
not even,
people to go.
it's maybe
into
not
war.
even necessary too, because politicians already agree.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Palestine, and that is a very concerning issue because the Netherlands has bought for about $1 billion, I think, in Israeli weapons since 7 October last year. To me, it's mind-boggling that our country is not only politically supporting what Israel is doing in Gaza, but it's even economically supporting a regime by buying these kind of weapons. How is the relationship between the Netherlands and Israel if it comes to weapons trade?
Well, yeah, what's often looked at is arms export from the Netherlands to Israel.
Yeah.
That's not apart from the parts of F-35 fighter jets. There's still battles in court going on about it. There's not much direct arms trade from the Netherlands to Israel. But the Netherlands has bought a lot of arms from the Israeli industry, and I think that's just a problematic relation, because the Israeli arms industry is very well known, like I already said, for using the Palestinian territories as a testing ground, also marketing. A lot of their equipment is marketed as combat proven or battle tested, and that makes them very popular on the international market.
What kind of weapons did the Netherlands buy from Israel over the past year?
Over the past year, I think the biggest buy was a launch system for anti-missile, anti-tank missiles. There was some self-protection system for helicopters, some ammunition, different things. But by buying that, you're legitimizing this strategy, and also this marketing strategy, and also the Israeli arms industry is very big, and of course has the IDF, the Israeli army, as its biggest customer, but it can't survive on that alone. It needs foreign money also to be able to do research, development of new arms. So buying from them really strengthens the Israeli military industrial complex. And the Dutch government always say, oh, we don't look at that. All we want to know is it good quality, and can they deliver quickly, because we need the things now, because we are preparing for war. And so they completely ignore that aspect.
Is the Netherlands exceptional in that sense, or are many countries still buying from Israel?
Oh, many countries are still buying from Israel, but the Netherlands is an increasingly important customer for the Israeli arms industry.
It's really shocking to see that after the carnage in Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon. Aren't there some sort of regulations to check whether you would say the arms trade is? I would imagine there are regulations. You cannot just sell everything to every other country. You cannot just buy everything from every country. Aren't there European or international or Dutch legislations that would sort of limit or look at sort of human rights violations, etc., by other countries?
I mean, for exporting arms, there's a EU regulation. It's called Common Position on Arms Exports, and it lists 8 criteria that EU member states have to check against when deciding on granting an export license or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that there are issues like human rights or political tensions or things like military tensions in the region or internal conflict in the country and things like that. There are a lot of problems with that already because countries are free to interpret that. And a lot of things that shouldn't happen if you have a strict implementation of that regulation are already happening. But the other way around, for importing arms, for buying arms, there are really no such restrictions at all. I mean, if relations are completely cut off, as is the case with Russia, then it won't happen. I don't see the Netherlands buying Russian arms at the moment.
No.
But in general, like for Israel or other highly problematic countries,
there's no issue.
There's no issue.
And but even you can say, if you look at Israel, I mean, the Dutch, you say that their role is minor at the moment, but we know from Germany that they're an enormous military. They provide enormous military support to Israel. Mm-hmm. Aren't they supposed to be held accountable also according to this EU regulation somehow? And I mean, we've had all these court. We have the arrest warrants by the ICC, we have the ICJ calling it a probable, or I don't know the word exactly, genocide. We've now Amnesty report also calling it a genocide. Doesn't that do anything? Doesn't that matter for countries like Germany or maybe Italy? I don't know who the big spenders or the big deliverers are currently to Israel.
Israel is for like 99% of its arms, it's relying on its own arms industry, the United States and Germany. Yes, with this European set of criteria, it's hard because countries are supposed to implement it themselves. There's no EU body or others that can enforce it or say you're not doing it right. Mm-hmm. So they're free to do that, and it leads to very strange interpretations sometimes. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are now court cases going on in several countries against arms supplies to Israel. Mm-hmm. If you rely on arms export regulations alone, that's hardly possible to do that. Mm. So you have to look at things like by delivering you're going complicit in war crimes or possibly complicit in genocide. Or, so that's the way that via courts there have been some very small steps have been taken.
Also in Germany or not?
No. I mean, there's some discussion in Germany going on. There's some hints that the German have stopped exporting some kind of weapons to Israel, but it's all very fake, and that's certainly not a general policy of.
So, to close off this discussion, like I'm wondering, your vision. You already said your vision of the future is not very bright. And I think I can agree with you, but like, what do we have to fear most first of all? But then the most important question is, what can we do? Did this seem like massive interest? It seems like if a genocide that you see every day, corpses of children, every day, women, men, and it doesn't even make a dent into the Dutch policy, for instance. We have this, we are so concerned, and then we buy a billion of weapons. So it seems they don't care at all. It's just my conclusion now. I thought, I have been naive maybe in the start. I thought this policy has to change now over the years because it's so obvious that it's so criminal what's happening. So in Israel, in Israel's case, it's for me even more obvious than when it comes to Ukraine. But so what do we have to fear most, and what can we do about it if a genocide doesn't even make an impact, let's say?
Those are big questions.
Yeah,
I think what we have to fear most in the end is this whole process of militarization, this whole idea of there's no other way than preparing for war, because it's going to lead to war, it's going to have a lot of consequences also in other ways, and it's for the long run. I mean, The Dutch government also wants to make it a legal obligation to spend at least 2% of the gross domestic income on the military, so that it's really for the long term, and it's also so next governments can change that anymore. So I think, yeah, that's what we have to fear most, this whole process of militarization going on for the long run. I don't think we can count on politicians to counter this, because apart from some minor challenges to this discourse, it's very broadly accepted in Parliament, and I'm afraid it's also broadly accepted amongst all society. Though I think it's less than if you look at parliamentary how it plays out in Parliament. So yeah, I think as people in the peace movement and the militaristic movement, we have to cooperate, we have to work together, I mean, there's so many things to do at the moment, but we have to challenge this discourse, bring facts to the table that challenge it. I think it's very important. Plead for alternatives. But there's a long road ahead.
Yeah, long road ahead. Yeah. Is there anything sort of recommended reading or recommended sort of action to follow for people?
Well, yeah, we're just starting a new movement, bringing together several groups from the peace movement, the climate movement, decolonial movement, the new peace movement, the new vredesbeweging, which is nice to follow, I think, and see where that goes, working together to challenge this discourse. Yeah,
but that's basically that's it. It's challenging a discourse, basically, what we can do, because there's a discourse going on, and it's overtaking minds and it's overtaking belief systems of people.
Yeah,
and I think that's something where we all can do something, I think. But the basis is maybe also, informing yourself what the real facts are. Let's say.
Yeah.
All right, Mark. Thanks a lot for your information. People can Google on your name and find a lot of interesting articles, although most of them are probably in Dutch. I'm not sure. You wrote on Al Jazeera also, I saw?
Yeah, it's both English and Dutch.
Both English and Dutch. Okay, good. For all audiences. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you.
Hope to speak to you in the future again.